Okay, my last Linux Mint video, someone put no, so I'll assume they're not really interested. That's a personal choice. I'm just putting it out there, saying that's always an option if you want to switch from Windows to Linux, or if you want to have a dual boot, which is what I'd recommend for most people that are currently running Windows. There's got to be a Windows software that you want to run, and there's probably some Linux software that you want to run. Now, if you're a gamer, you're probably going to want to stick with, gaming in Windows. There are a few decent games in Linux. But anyway, next I'm going to cover now, when you get your ISO file, you download it. You want to use a program that will specifically make this a bootable USB drive. If you just copy the files on it with a file manager, that it won't work. It has to be set up as a bootable drive, or it won't load. Now, I have seen on Facebook, I've seen companies that will take maybe 20 or 30 distros. They're for sale. I don't know the price. Maybe somewhere between $20 and $50, something like that. They'll have quite a number of the popular distros. You're not buying just one distro. You're buying a number of them. So if you just want to have them as live boots, I'm sure they've only got the ones that will run as live boots. Where it's not. You don't install it on the hard drive initially. You run it and make sure that all your hardware is compatible. And if you do have any issues, like I said before, you can go on a user forum and see if somebody's already put solutions there, or you might join the forum and just state your particular hardware problem, and someone may have some workarounds. Sometimes there are, sometimes they're not. Now, there are some distros. Now, like Mint is pretty much made for either experienced users or beginners, because Mint is pretty easy to use. Zorn is pretty easy to use, and a number of the ones that I've used are easy. Now, there's distros like Kali Linux. Kali Linux is definitely written for a much more. I've never installed it on a hard drive, but I have run it as a live boot. Kali is intended for hackers, and there's a lot of programs. It comes bundled with all kind of hacking programs, for hacking the networks and stuff. And there are programs on there that you really, really have to know how to use them, or they're not going to work for you. So I'm saying not all the Linux distros are intended for beginning users. Linux is more for the more technically minded individuals anyway. Like I said, another thing I'm going to cover now, Mint. And many of the distros will have what they call, a software manager. Now, if you're connected to the internet, you can bring up the software manager, and it's hundreds and hundreds of completely free softwares. Everything from games to file managers to stuff there's some GPS stuff on there. And if you do load Mint, go to the file manager. Now, there's a bunch of programs that I'll load from from their the software download page. Now, I like Kdenlive. Now, there's some stuff that there was a LMMS, Linux Multimedia Suite, or something like that. It's for making music. If you get Ubuntu Studio, Ubuntu Studio is another fairly easy one. That has a bunch of software bundled with it. That's it has some pretty decent software, especially for free. Lots is free. Now, if you go with something like Red Hat, now if you're familiar with Red Hat, if you're using it, that's fine. But Red Hat, you got to subscribe to it. You're actually paying for it. And there's two or three of the distros that are like that you subscribe to them. They give you long-term support as long as you're subscribed to them. It isn't very much. I think last time I checked it was like $30 a year or something like that. So you're really getting quite, if you're into running Red Hat, like I said, I got it many years ago. I think actually Sam Club actually sold the DVD with it on it. Actually, I think I paid like $25-30 for it, something like that. And I ran it just for a short period of time, but didn't really stick with it. I found other distros that I liked it a little bit better. I'm not saying Red Hat's bad. I'm saying that's probably for a much more experienced user. Because they kind of vary in complexity. And if you go to distrowatch.com and go to their they'll tell you the specific distros if they're intended for beginners or much more experienced users. So I mean, if you want to go with something other than Linux Mint, you can. Before I download them, I would find out if you're not an experienced user, I would be kind of careful of the much more harder to use distros. Let's see, have I covered everything? Well, there's tons and tons of tutorials here on YouTube on either setting up a Linux system for the first time, or running software like Kdenlive. I said Kdenlive, the video editor. There's all kind of how-tos on using different Linux software. There's there's a bunch of them on the LMMS, Linux Multimedia Suite or Studio or something like that. Now, LMMS, even though it says Linux, it is cross-platform. Someone had written a version to run under Windows if you want to run LMMS under Windows. But you definitely need to watch the tutorials to figure out how to use it, because I've set it up a couple times and just got, let's say what I got it to make sound, but I wouldn't call it music. But I didn't really kick it around very much. Now I have used Kdenlive a bunch of times to do some of my videos, and Kdenlive is really, really good for free video editing software. I'd recommend it if somebody wants to do video editing, but so you definitely have to watch the video tutorials. Let's see. I'm going to make another video here in a minute, so I'm going to say goodbye for this one. Goodbye.